Ray Onyegu was not able to come, and so Edward Oyugi from Kenya is here to replace him. He works for the Social Development Network in Kenya and also teaches psychology at the Kenyatta University in Nairobi. So we could start with Edward.
Thank you very much. As you hear, I'm standing in for somebody who was supposed to have addressed you on the question and issues of social security. Unfortunately, he was not able to make it to New York. So I will try to do what he was meant to do. And if I fall short of your expectations, please do bear with me. I come from Kenya, and all of you will remember that just a year and a half ago, we went through a very bad patch. We had a post-election violence that caused us a lot of problems. Many people died. A lot of property was destroyed. Many were injured. And just as we were trying to recover from the effects of the post-election violence of last year, we got ourselves caught up in the crisis that initially we thought was not going to reach our shores. And so you can expect that the reactions and responses from the various sectors of our society differ depending on where they stood in our society. The state sector, for a long time, thought that the financial crisis, and not economic crisis, mind you, was not going to reach Kenya. So they kept assuring the country that there was no crisis. The crisis was going to be confined to New York, Berlin, Tokyo, and the rest. Civil society, on its part, also did respond by merely saying, we as an economy, we don't have a serious engagement, or we are not very much integrated into the world economy, so it will not affect us. Of course, this is not to say that there was no section of civil society that did understand that someday the crisis would hit us. The ordinary people were isolated from any knowledge about this crisis because the media was not informing them about the nature of the crisis itself and to what extent it would affect them once it reached our shores. But it didn't take long, a few months down the line, and that is late last year, the Kenyan economy started feeling the effects of the crisis. It was no longer said to be an American problem. We noticed, to our surprise, that tourism, which is a great earner of external or monies from abroad, that is the dollar and the euro, was dwindling. The visitors were not coming. So the ordinary Kenyans who rely on servicing the tourist sector began to complain that there was no money coming in the country. So that was followed with unemployment. The ordinary Kenyan farmer who thought that they were not going to be affected because they produced goods that did not find their way to the market ordinarily, began to lose hope once they noticed that there was nothing coming in the way of inputs into the farming sector. The ordinary Kenyan person who lives in the rural areas began to feel the pinch. Many Kenyans rely on remittances, mainly from the US, by Kenyan diaspora. People may not attach a lot of significance to these, but there are many poor Kenyans whose sons and daughters found their way to the US, and when the US economy was performing well, at least some money used to trickle back home, and supported them. They took their kids to school. They paid for some of their basic needs. But this started not happening because the Kenyan diaspora was not employed, or if he was employed, he was losing his house, so he had no surplus money to send back to the country. This is when we began to understand the full implications of the crisis, and that is when we began to appreciate that the crisis was not a financial crisis, but an economic crisis that was going to affect us, regardless of the fact that much of our economy is not integrated in the global economy.